In today's ever-growing universe of technology, cybersecurity has become the forethought of consumers, businessmen, and information technology professionals alike. Threats are no longer unilateral, but rather multidimensional and relentless. Hackers have become so sophisticated that prevention and detection have become a field of its own. In the next few paragraphs, a discussion about why cybersecurity is so important and some best practices that can aid a company to prevent these attacks, technologies like two-factor authentication and hardware authentication, and virtual private networks. Hopefully, by the end of this discussion, the information provided will help make cybersecurity concerns for many companies a little bit easier to understand and implement.
Preventing a data breach. A data breach is not a threat or attack in its own. A data breach comes as a result of a cyber attack that allows cybercriminals to gain unauthorized access to a computer system or network and steal private, sensitive, or financial data. The fines, cleanup costs, legal fees, lawsuits, and even ransomware payouts of a data breach can add up very quickly. The 2018 IBM's cost of a data breach study found that the average cost of a data breach to be right around $3.9 million, an increase of 6.4% over the previous year. According to the same study, your chances of experiencing a data breach are as high as 1 in 4. Doesn't it make sense to be proactive about data security and avoid a breach in the first place? If you answer yes, and we hope you did, here are some of the best practices to help keep your business and your data secured. Practice network segmentation. On a flat data network, cybercriminals are free to move around your network and steal every byte of important data. Network segmentation will help you slow criminals down, buying extra time during an attack, and limiting compromised data. Enforce the principle of least privilege. Principle of least privilege means that each user account has only enough access to do its job and nothing more. If one user account is compromised, cybercriminals will not have access to your entire network. Invest in a good advanced firewall and endpoint protection system. If you have the misfortune of clicking a malicious link or opening a bad attachment, a good endpoint protection system will be able to detect the threat, stop the download, and prevent malware from getting onto your network. Multi-factor authentication. The two-factor authentication is the simplest form of MFA, meaning you need your password and one other form of authentication to prove that you are who you say you are and not a cybercriminal attempting to hack your account. For example, a website might ask you to enter your login credentials and enter a separate authentication code sent via text to your phone. Invest in a cyber insurance. General liability insurance covers bodily injuries and property damage, but data breaches are usually excluded. Cyber insurance will cover businesses' liability when a data breach occurs.
Hello, I am Firas Al-Kattani and I will be talking about the two-factor authentication. Hackers have discovered many ways of hacking passwords, which has led passwords to be insecure. Brute force attacks and dictionary attacks are effective ways of guessing a password. Also, gaining access and keyloggers helps hackers to collect passwords. However, this way of hacking password could fail if the stolen account belongs to a system that uses two-factor authentication. A two-factor authentication is an extra layer of security that asks the user who is trying to access the account to verify who they say they are. When a person tries to log in to an account, he needs to provide a username and password, and this step is the first factor of authentication. The second step factor of authentication requires you to provide additional information. The additional information type depends on the website or organization and what type of second factor authentication they chose. This second factor authentication is divided into three types. First is something you know, like personal identification number, PIN number or an answer to a secret question. Second is something you have, like a credit card or a token sent via SMS message. Third is something you are, which includes biometric pattern like facial identification, fingerprints. Second factor must be proven and can't be skipped. If a person tries to log into an account and it couldn't prove a second factor authentication, there will be no access gained. The first factor authentication is useless if the second factor fails. Two-factor authentication is a very strong method to secure accounts from being hacked. However, that doesn't mean that the two-factor authentication cannot be bypassed or hacked. Two-factor authentication can reduce the risk that an anonymous person can get access to your accounts. In conclusion, every online service has a sensitive data, which is stored in their system, and it's a must for these organizations to provide the best methods to secure this data.
Cybersecurity has many technologies that deserve to be discussed, but hardware authentication is a technology that will prove beneficial to many companies and users. Hardware authentication is defined as the use of hardware devices to grant access to some users. These devices can be anything ranging from a USB, biometrics such as fingerprint scanners, retina scanners, or a new technology known as FIDO U2F. For many people, a USB is a mass storage device, but we're going to be talking about the use of a USB device for cybersecurity. A USB security key is inserted into the appropriate slot on the device where a key is exchanged between the device and the USB. This is a twofold process because just having the USB key is not enough. The user must also have the appropriate password. Once both inputs are verified, the user will be granted access to the information they are cleared for. Once this transaction is complete, the user must log out of the system and remove the USB security key from the device. Another amazing technology on the market for hardware authentication is biometrics. These include fingerprint scanners, facial recognition, and retina scanners. Fingerprint scanners work very similarly to USB security keys, but instead of a USB device, the user will be using their finger to gain access to the system. The user places their finger on the scanner and it looks at the ridges and depressions of the fingerprint. Once scanned, the image is digitized and then checked against a stored encrypted file. If the files match, the user is granted access. Facial recognition is very similar to a fingerprint scanner, but it uses the contours of the person's face, and then it compares the same digitized file against the stored encrypted file to make the match. Retina scanners work by using an infrared light beam to fully illuminate the retinas. This picture that is captured is checked against a stored image on the device, and if the images match, then the user will be allowed access. Yet another cybersecurity service offered is FIDO U2F. It is an open authentication standard that enables Internet users to securely access any number of online services with one security key instantly, and with no drivers or software needed. This technology can be used with USBs or NFC or Bluetooth technologies to provide two-factor authentication. It works much like the USB security keys, but it operates directly with the browser so it can check the authenticity of the website to combat spoofing.
As technology continues to grow, there has become an increasing focus on availability. This has been driven by the needs of many organizations to have their data, devices, and networks available to employees remotely over secure network connections. Of course, increasing availability inevitably comes with its own vulnerabilities and challenges. Virtual private networks are the solutions to those challenges, just one of many of the solutions virtualization has come to offer. A virtual private network provides an encrypted connection to a network or resource even over a non-secure network. Exploring some of the different categories and types of virtual private networks will help us to better understand what they are and what they could be used for. There are basically two categories of virtual private networks: client-based and network-based. As you can see in the picture on the left, client-based networks consist of an encrypted connection between a single user and a remote network with an unsecure network in between. While if we look at the picture on the right, we see a structure that seems similar to client-based, but connecting two networks instead. This is a network-based virtual private network. So, simply put, client-based VPNs are an encrypted connection between a single user and a network, and network-based VPNs are encrypted connections between networks. As you can probably tell, client-based VPNs are the simpler category of the two. They generally consist of a single user on a device using an installed program or application to securely connect to a remote network. These must always include authentication through username and password, and some more secure VPNs are moving towards dual authentication. A quick example of a client-based VPN would be Cisco's AnyConnect VPN. Some of the classes I'm currently taking at ASU require the use of this VPN to securely connect to ASU resources using our same username and password. As we've covered already, network-based VPNs connect two or more networks. These structures can be significantly more complicated than client-based VPNs, but do often share similarities. IPsec tunnels, for instance, use the same encryption tunnel structure as client-based VPNs, but have several more requirements for setup, such as having known device endpoints, known authentication methods, and a known traffic flow. Going a little further ahead of IPsec tunnels, we have dynamic multi-point VPNs. These again have a similar structure to IPsec tunnels, but are more complex, including many different IPsec tunnels built into a cloud of networks. This, of course, comes with benefits over a traditional IPsec tunnel, as it does not require a known IP address to establish a secure connection. This makes dynamic IP assignment possible while still maintaining a secure network.
In conclusion, technology is growing at a very increased rate, and with this growth, companies are finding it more and more difficult to keep data safe and secure from hackers. It has been shown that companies that plan, perform maintenance, and adhere to strict policies of cybersecurity can make their data safer. Technologies that are being developed and put into place can and will continue to increase security of systems and information. Technologies such as two-factor authentication, hardware authentication, and virtual private networks are growing in popularity and will be an integral part of every business in the years to come.